Welcome back, everybody, to Watcher of All Things. My name is Kiki, and this is my podcast where I talk movies, TV shows, and all things entertainment. And today, it is episode 57. We are talking Captain America: Brave New World, a movie I feel like that has been in production for 1,000 years, has been delayed 100 times, and has had endless money thrown at it, but we will talk about it. We are burning the midnight oil, and by that I mean it is Friday, February 14th, and it is 6:30 p.m., but I'm so tired. Saw this movie at like noon today, 12:30, something like that, and lots to talk about after seeing this in IMAX. But before we get to that, I hope you're all doing well. My God, we are getting a massive snow dump this weekend in Ontario. We had a huge storm yesterday. Tomorrow it's supposed to snow again. Sunday it's supposed to absolutely blizzard, like apocalyptic level blizzard. Winter on steroids. I'm so sick of it right now. It's been a crazy week of Oscar catch-ups. I've watched so many things that I actually had to, for once, limit myself in the what else I watched section. That's going to come later in the show. I'm also going to film my YouTube video on Monday or Tuesday with my 2025 Oscar hopes and predictions. I'm very excited for that to come out probably February 27th, 28th, something like that. But today, the matter at hand, Captain America: Brave New World. So much to talk about. Before we get to that, just plugging a couple of things. Severance reviews every Monday on my social medias, as well as a shorter review every Thursday. This week we talked about Love Hurts. By the time you're listening to this, maybe the Severance Monday night review is already out, so go and enjoy that on all the social media platforms. And as always, timestamps below. If you don't want anything spoiled for the movie, just listen to the non-spoiler section before what else I watched. Skip the spoiler section. But before we get into Captain America: Brave New World, let's jump into the news. All right, well, this first piece of news comes after there was a Daily Beast big report about the SNL kind of chaos following Donald Trump being announced as host. This was back in 2016 in his presidential run the first time. There was so much drama in that original Daily Beast part, but the part that stuck out to me as an I Think You Should Leave fan, as a massive Tim Robinson fan, there was one excerpted quote, and Variety wrote a separate article just about the Tim Robinson part. So this comes from Variety saying, Tim Robinson said Lorne Michaels lost his fucking mind inviting Trump to host SNL. Tim had apparently said in a very angry rant, Lorne has lost his fucking mind and someone needs to shoot him in the back of the head. And in a new interview, Michaels tried to explain that it's the hardest thing for me to explain to this generation that the show is nonpartisan. We have our biases, we have our people we like better than others, but you can't be Samantha Bee. So all these quotes and stuff are coming from a book called Lorne, the Man Who Invented Saturday Night Live, coming out on February 18th, 2 days after the 50th anniversary special. By the time, of course, this episode comes out, that will have happened. I will be watching. I'll give my thoughts on it next week. But yeah, I've always thought Lorne Michaels, the guy running SNL, the head honcho, I'm shocked he hasn't stepped back years ago, because it's just some of the choices are very weird. And I do think sometimes watching SNL, it is a bit of a relic of the past. Like it's really the only unique thing or thing of the past that's sort of stuck in its ways, but it feels like artists and the comedians and the writers are constantly trying to push new humor and new wave stuff into their sketches, but still the format is a little bit outdated sometimes. But in the same sense, though, it is kind of charming that SNL has been the same thing for 50 years, and they have started like digital shorts with The Lonely Island and these songs and stuff that are really fun and kind of have embraced the social media world as well, with really good YouTube clips and stuff like that. And they have, unlike a lot of late night shows like, oh my God, The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon is just, sometimes watching it's just like a ghost town. Like, what is this format? Who really cares anymore? No one is watching this live, but it's The Tonight Show, so they're never going to let that dinosaur die. So Morrison's book, it sounds very interesting. I mean, it's pretty much going to be praising Lorne Michaels, just like that Saturday Night movie did, which, man, thinking back on that, like, look, I enjoyed watching it, but it is so just like kiss ass of Lorne Michaels, and it patting itself on the back. I'll probably never watch it again. And you know what? There's hundreds of movies every year, so there's no reason I need to revisit it, but some of the praise it got after, I just did not understand. It was funny, and it had some interesting casting choices for like people that stepped into those really recognizable celebrities, but just story-wise, I feel like it had absolutely nothing interesting to really say, and was just one of the clumsier screenplays of last year. But shout out Tim Robinson for just speaking the honest truth that Lorne Michaels needs to be put down like a sick old dog. Maybe that's a little harsh, but I mean, like, he needs to step step down eventually. I don't know who would fill that role, though, to be honest. A lot of people have rumored that Tina Fey is maybe a replacement for Lorne Michaels. I think possibly he might announce he's stepping down next weekend, or this weekend, tonight, last night, whenever you're listening to this. I honestly do think he's going to step down, and if he doesn't, it would be shocking. He's done it for 50 years. Why not let the show go in a new direction and see what happens? But on to other news. Variety also reported a few days ago that the Oscars are considering requiring films to disclose AI use after The Brutalist and Emilia Perez controversies. It is very interesting writing my notes for my Oscar video. I feel like I had a general idea 3 weeks ago of where it was going to go. A lot of it was going to The Brutalist. A lot of it was going to Emilia Perez. But now, after all of the AI discussions and controversy, I don't know if I've really given a single award to Emilia Perez so far. I actually think it might go 0 for 13 on the night, because you have to keep in mind a lot of the other award shows, I think, and especially like Golden Globes as well, the voting and everything happened before all the controversy with Carla Sofia Gascon coming out, which she's not even attending the BAFTAs, which are also this Sunday at the same time as SNL, so I'm not going to watch it. But it's fascinating how much of a cultural shift there has been with Emilia Perez. Before, it was like, oh, everybody hates this movie, and why are the critics praising it and giving it all this love? And now it almost feels like the critics have as well completely deserted it. The Critics' Choice Awards, I think Emilia Perez won a few of them, and it was very awkward in the room. I saw some videos from the ceremony itself, and pretty much nobody was clapping in the audience, and you could tell people were uncomfortable with the movie winning now. And I'm glad people are finally seeing the light with Emilia Perez and the critics as well, because I honestly think at the Oscars, I'll stand on business right now and say Emilia Perez may just go 0 for 13. I think I'm going to predict Emilia Perez to get 0 in my video, but you'll just have to stay tuned and listen to that. But the Oscars considering to require films to disclose AI use, I think that's a really interesting idea, even if it doesn't need to be on a poster and posted publicly, but just like, maybe, posted publicly, but it wouldn't really be changing that much, because as Variety says in their article, the Academy currently offers an optional disclosure form for AI use, but governors and branch executive committees are now investigating how AI is used in each branch, with an eye toward making disclosure mandatory in the 2026 Oscars rule, which are expected to be published in April. The Academy's Sci-Tech Council is working on recommended language. I think that's all just a very good idea, because why not be just transparent about it so voters know in what capacity did you use it as a tool versus generative and like using it for full ideas and full accents or full whatever, like singing and auto-tune, if you think about that. I don't see how this could be harmful at all. I would totally be down for it, and in fact, I would really appreciate it, so it's more transparent how embedded in Hollywood it is. I think, did I talk about it last week or the week before that? I feel like the Emilia Perez AI stuff, the Brutalist AI stuff, the Furiosa, the Dune, all of the Reese Beecher stuff as well with like Better Man, and the fact that AI is much more prevalent in Hollywood than we thought, I think is a real wake-up call to film fans, to TV fans, to movie watchers and critics or audience members. I think just having that transparency and understanding the lengths that AI is being used in Hollywood right now could be effective, and I think what's happened in the last 2 months has just been a real wake-up call for not only myself, but I think a lot of us. It would just be nice to know how much generative AI is used, how much of it is just like little tools that help move processes along faster, how much actually requires humans to operate the AI as well, instead of just clicking a button, walking out of the room, and then, oh, we come back and the movie's done. I think that's what's really important to me, is making sure that jobs will still be used, even if it's done faster and, it's an efficient method and it's not hurting anyone and it's not a soulless thing. If it's just like, whatever, processing something faster that would just take more hours, I get it. But at the same time, you don't want to be cutting jobs with the replacement of AI. All right, and some more good news. Ben Stiller is to headline music industry dramedy The Band in works at HBO. From what I understand, Ben Stiller has kind of taken a backseat acting in the last 2 years. He's really scaled back how much he's been involved in front of the camera since, I think, Zoolander 2. That's when he decided that he needed a break from it. I think he's only really done Nutcrackers, that cute Christmas movie that was done last year. He hasn't been in Severance, of course. He's only a director in that sense and part of the writing team, I guess. But this is looking good. So HBO is developing The Band, an hour-long dramedy series starring Ben Stiller in a rare TV role. The project comes from Media Res and Stiller's Red Hour Films, the companies behind two of Apple TV's biggest series, The Morning Show and Severance. Severance, if you don't know, is literally the best TV show on TV right now, on streaming, on anything. It's one of the best things you can be watching week to week right now. I cannot recommend it enough. We're going to talk about it and what else I watched today, so careful for spoilers if I say things. This new show, though, The Band, created by Sarah Violet Bliss and Charles Rogers, co-creators of the acclaimed TBS Max comedy Search Party. The Band offers an inside look at the music industry centered on Oscar, played by Ben Stiller, a pop talent mogul beset by a scandal who is tasked with forming a new act in order to save his career and perhaps his soul. So essentially he's going to be like a Simon Cowell type guy who needs to assemble a new boy band to resurrect his career. It sounds really fun. It's HBO. I think it could be good. I have never watched an HBO series that I thought was not good, so I'm pretty confident this will be great. And also, I think Ben Stiller is a fantastic actor. Usually it's the script or something else that's the issue, not him. So I think this has very good potential. It is interesting how many series we are kind of getting about Hollywood now and like Hollywood executives and directors and stuff like that. Seth Rogen has a show coming out on Apple TV, I think, called The Studio, or The Studio, something like that, where he's the head of a studio and he has to deal with all these Hollywood people and stuff like that. It looks really funny. And actually, speaking of Seth Rogen, that's a great segue into our next story. Seth Rogen has said that the complaint that comedy's harder than it used to be is not valid and asks, why shouldn't it be harder? So he said, quote, maybe it was too easy before. Why shouldn't it be hard? I like that my job is hard because I'm trying to do something that requires a huge amount of resources and people's time and energy. What do you wish you could say? What do you feel has been taken away from you? It's always funny when people are like, oh, they could never make the Diversity Day episode of The Office today. You can still watch it. I'm constantly meeting teenagers who love Superbad, who think it holds up, and none of them are like, how fucking dare you have said that? It's so true. I don't think comedy has gotten any harder to make today. You just can't punch down and make cheap shots anymore. Like, nobody's just gonna laugh at shitty humor, making fun of minorities, making fun of, the queer community or whatever it is, making rape jokes and stuff like that, like Flight Risk. All of the humor in that movie is just it's so dumb and it's so gross. It's like none of this is funny. None of it is adding to the story in any way. What is the point of it? And then you're like, oh, Mel Gibson is involved in this movie. Makes a lot of sense. Why not make comedy that is more complex and is smarter and just funnier in general and doesn't, you don't need to punch down on people. You can punch up. That always works. But Superbad, the example he brought up, that's so true. Superbad is still, in my eyes, one of the funniest movies. Dumb and Dumber is still a movie I laugh at every time I watch it. It's amazing. You can make good stuff still that will carry on forever. You can still watch Diversity Day. Nobody is canceling you from watching The Office or anything like that. It's just, people love to just complain that their rights and stuff are being taken away and, oh my God, freedom is all gone. It's like, you can do literally whatever you want in this world now. There is more opportunity than ever to do things and to say things. Social media exists. You know how many idiots there are online spewing bigoted shit? But now the difference is there's consequences when you say things that are harmful or play into negative stereotypes. Point in case, Kanye West just this week was, dropped by his record label or whatever, his talent agency, I guess, representation. His website was taken down for selling shirts with swastikas on them. I don't know. Seth Rogen, a good point, man. A good Canadian kid. All right, final story just broke this afternoon. Potsy Ponchiaroli, definitely not saying that right, and he sounds like a Bond villain, has apparently been tapped to pen the Goonies sequel for Warner Brothers. That is right, folks. We are getting a Goonies sequel 40 years later from the original. Dear God, who is asking for this? But Goonies never say die, and neither does the dream of a sequel, as Deadline says. So Old Henry writer Potsy Ponchiaroli is coming aboard to pen the script for Warner Brothers Motion Picture Group. Plot details are currently under wraps, and no director is currently attached, but Steven Spielberg, Christy Krieger, and Holly Berrio will produce for Amblin Entertainment alongside Chris Columbus, with Lauren Schuler Donner executive producing. Interesting producer group. They've made a lot of good stuff. Chris Columbus, of course, directed 2 Harry Potter movies, Home Alone, all that good stuff. Love Chris Columbus. Just produced Nosferatu as well. Steven Spielberg is Steven Spielberg, so he has a good eye for good stories. But Goonies, I feel like, is a weird one to order a sequel for. That movie still lives on, and I think, honestly, it does kind of come back with every generation. That is still a very popular movie in my eyes. I still love the Goonies. Actually, it was interesting. Josh Brolin, and when he was on Conan's podcast a few weeks ago or a couple months ago, whenever it is, he was talking about how he constantly gets new people coming up to him that are just getting younger and younger, being like, hey, Goonies, I love that movie. Like, I watched it with my parents or my grandparents or my cousins or whatever, and we thought it was hilarious. Like, I don't know. It's always cool to hear that stuff, and I always love hearing, movies and TV shows that get passed down from family member to family member remember and stuff like that's always charming in my eyes. Like my family, we have our movies. Like my family, we love About Time, Love Actually, as kind of weird that movie is watching now. All of the James Bond movies we loved growing up. You know, every family has their movies and TV shows that they watch, especially at the holidays. You all have your set things, but Goonies is like a very popular movie that kind of gets passed down between generation to generation. So it is very interesting that we are going to get a sequel 40 years later. I'm curious who the legacy characters are going to be. Who are they going to bring back? Because, you know, tons of the actors are still alive. We had a mini Goonies reunion in Love Hurts last week, which I'll talk about in what else I watched. But for now, I think it's time we talk Captain America Brave New World. As I said before, timestamps. If you want to stick to the non-spoiler section, I'm only covering what's in the trailer and what is common knowledge. I will not spoil anything for you, even if there's not tons of stuff to spoil in this. Kind of what's in the trailer is what you get, but still, there's some goodies that I'll hide for the spoiler section and major plot parts, but let's do it. Let's talk Captain America Brave New World. Captain America Brave New World is a 2025 action sci-fi film coming in at a meager hour 58 minutes. It is directed by Julius Ona, who did The Girl Is in Trouble, The Cloverfield Paradox, and Luce? I don't know. Written by Rob Edwards, Malcolm Spellman, Dalen Mousson, Julius Ona, and Peter Glanz on a budget of $180 million, but a lot of reports are saying that it will be closer to 300, and current reviews, not very good. Has a 51% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 78% audience score, 5.9 on IMDb, 43% on Metacritic, and 2.7 average on Letterboxd with 3 stars as the mode. The synopsis for Captain America Brave New World. After meeting with newly elected U.S. President Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, Sam finds himself in the middle of an international incident. He must discover the reason behind a nefarious global plot before the true mastermind has the entire world seeing red. The film stars, of course, my golden boy, Anthony Mackie, he can do no wrong, as Sam Wilson, Captain America. Then we have Harrison Ford as President Ross, Danny Ramirez as Joaquin Torres, Shira Haas as Ruth Bat Seraph, Tim Blake Nelson as Samuel Stearns, Giancarlo Esposito was a late addition as Sidewinder, Carl Lumbly as Isaiah Bradley, Exosha Rockmore as Layla Taylor, and a whole bunch of others that really don't affect this story at all. All right, initial thoughts on Captain America Brave New World. Well, guys, we did a watch back last week talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I said at the end of the episode, I am excited, but I am worried it will be bad. So I am sad to say Captain America Brave New World is very bad. This was a very, very bad movie. It's messy, it's cluttered, there's moments where it almost feels like, oh, there could have been something here, but it's so patchy and poorly assembled, absolutely butchered by the studio. We will talk about all that, but I want to talk about the performances first, which are really the positives for me. Anthony Mackie is Sam Wilson, Captain America. Look, he's good in this. He is good as always. He is yet to be bad in one of these movies. I think Anthony Mackie is just a fantastic actor. Like I said with Sebastian Stan last week, I think he is one of the best cast characters in the MCU. He constantly brings it. I love every scene with him. I never feel like he's phoning it in. Some reviewers, like some media outlets online, were saying, oh, even he's not that charismatic in this one. I still liked him in this movie as bad as I thought this movie was. I think he is a very good Captain America as well, playing that character, taking the shield from Steve. I think the MCU has a good Captain America if they last another 10 years. Like, what is the end of the MCU going to be? I don't know. When are they going to stop this all and reboot, or just stop for a while and start over? I don't know. I think there's too much money invested into this and they will never stop. But anyways, he gives it his absolute best, Anthony Mackie, and is usually the best part of every scene, along with someone else that I'll talk about in a moment. But first, I want to talk about Danny Ramirez as Joaquin Torres, Falcon. Meh, just like in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I just don't find him that captivating. I think he's kind of a cheesy actor. His humor, especially in this movie, they give him all of the really bad humor that just like is the MCU humor that everyone jokes about. He's right behind me, isn't he? That, oh, nobody saw that really cool flip. It's not interesting. It kind of takes you out of scenes sometimes, and he's just not that interesting as a sidekick as well. I'm pretty sure in the comics he's an illegal immigrant that is experimented on medically, but in this he's just a guy that was in the military and looked up to Sam Wilson as a kid. That's it. it. He has no interesting background about him. Really, there's no character development for him in this movie, and that's going to be a common theme we'll talk about today. But I do want to talk about another positive other than Anthony Mackie. Harrison Ford, the newest addition to the MCU as Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross / Red Hulk. He is so good in this, guys. He's actually great. I think he doesn't give one bad scene, even transforming into the Hulk. Harrison Ford has still got it. He is still a fantastic actor. His chemistry with Mackie is so good. Really, Mackie and Ford are the only things helping this movie. Ford brings a lot of tension, a lot of anger. He really steps into the Thunderbolt Ross role after unfortunately losing the previous actor. Harrison Ford, he's still great. He's still one of my favorite actors. Then we have Shira Haas as Ruth Bat Saraf / Sabra, who I think it's important to address the elephant in the room. There's a lot of controversy around the involvement of her character, so I'm going to break it down for you according to Wikipedia. And I remember when all of this went down, the announcement that Sabra, an Israeli superheroine, would be adapted for the film led to criticisms from some people who believed this would lead to a negative stereotypical portrayals of Palestinians and Arabs. In the comics, Sabra is a member of the Mossad, and some of the Arab characters she interacts with were perceived to be misogynistic, anti-Semitic, and violent. The name Sabra also has different meanings to Israeli Jews and Palestinians. The Palestinian Campaign for the Academic and Cultural Boycott of Israel criticized the use of the character and called the comic book versions valorization of Mossad and perceived racism against Palestinians sickening. Youssef Menayer, a Palestinian-American writer and analyst, felt the character could not have a positive role in the film based on her depiction in the comics and said turning Israeli spies into heroes was insensitive and disgraceful. In response, Marvel Studios said the film was taking a new approach to the character, which they do. Very different version in the film. She's a reimagined modern version for modern audiences, and I'll talk about in spoilers how they kind of change her character because I don't think it's in the trailers who she is really. Just today, a friend of mine mentioned like, oh wow, it's interesting they haven't really marketed the film, and I was like, honestly, I think there's a few reasons they haven't marketed the film. Not only is it because Sabra is in this, and even at the premiere the other night, pro-Palestinian protesters called for Captain America boycott at the Los Angeles premiere. As Variety reports, protesters held signs that read Sabra has got to go, Disney supports genocide, boycott Captain America. Going into the film, I do think the lack of marketing for this film, like nobody going on Hot Ones or I don't think anybody really went on The Tonight Show or stuff like that. I don't know, it's been a quieter campaign. I think a lot of that also has to do with the fact that the film is really going to be a bomb. It might break even, but if the true like $300 million budget is true, they're going to have to really put in the legwork through like loyal fans and word of mouth because I think a lot of people might watch this and say, just wait for it to be on Disney Plus. But anyways, Shira Haas as Ruth Bat Saraf, I don't think she was necessarily a character that needed to be involved in this story in any way at all. Like I think you could have left that as history, and she's only really in like 3 comics as well, and in one of the comics she's like celebrating the killing of Palestinian children. So I think it was just kind of a dumb play on Marvel's part, and they kind of shot themselves in the foot by being like, oh, why don't we use this highly controversial character but reimagine her? It's like, no, just make a new character. That's okay. You don't need to do that. Tim Blake Nelson as Samuel Stearns coming back as the leader. Pretty forgettable villain. He hardly feels developed. Again, like Danny Ramirez as Falcon. Then Giancarlo Esposito as Sidewinder. He was, of course, added in reshoots. He was part of the massive rewrite that it went through before the strikes, I think. He's really wasted in this movie. He has maybe 5 to 10 minutes total on screen, and he's, I don't know, no real depth to him or explanation of who he is. And like Serpent Society, basically their inclusion in this film is just a payoff to the joke that they were going to do Captain America Serpent Society, but instead it turned to Civil War, I believe, or Winter Soldier. I will say though, Carl Lumbly as Isaiah Bradley, they let him be a little bit happier and there's more fun stuff with him in this film. He doesn't step a foot wrong. Once again, I loved him in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I loved him in this as well. But let's get to the story. I think the story could have actually been entertaining and has some good ideas that are just not developed at all. Like the arms race for adamantium coming from the Eternals. I think that's a good idea and you can do a lot with that, especially adamantium. Where is that going to take us in the MCU with Wolverine or whatever, with mutants? Someone brainwashing all of these people into attacking the US president and trying to turn him into Red Hulk. That's an okay idea as well. That's kind of Winter Soldier rehashed in another way. Mind control. We've kind of already done that in the MCU. So using the Serpent Society, pointless. The villain of the film, the leader, Tim Blake Nelson, he's hardly in this, to be honest. And when he is, he's usually talking on a cell phone or he's, I don't know, wearing sunglasses and a hoodie or stuff like that. But I don't want to spoil anything or his involvement and what happens with him. So I think the story is just the definition of multiple stories being thrown thrown together, too many people in the writer's room, too many different ideas, too many corrections as well. The director just today was quoted saying, "We only did one period of additional photography, which is the same on all of these movies. There are parts where you can tell, oh, that was a less noticeable reshoot, and then there are parts of this movie that are painfully reshot." There is a speech at the end of this movie that it looks like someone is talking from their garage in Hollywood versus filming in Atlanta, everyone else. It's painfully bad, the reshoots. Not a very well written film either. There were several times in this movie where it literally felt like the characters were turning to me in the audience, saying the plan to one another, saying characters' motivations, and explaining to you what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes in case you weren't paying attention. It's like, yeah, I bought a ticket. I'm here to pay attention. And there's just some absolute exposition dumping. Oh my God. Particularly in the second act going into the third act, there's so much just explaining. It's boring. There were so many kids at my screening today, and I really don't know how entertained they would have been. Like, there's a few fun moments in it. The action is fun, but it doesn't look good. And there's some really tired choreography and like bad fight scenes in it that are just really not directed very well. But just some of the monologuing, particularly from the leader, is just really bad. It feels more like a movie that's interested in being a Hulk sequel and just exploring the past of the MCU instead of anything new or fun. The only new idea in this movie really is adamantium, but even that is surrounded by characters coming back from like phase 1 of the MCU, or literally all of the Sam stuff that's done in this is kind of done in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I don't want to go into it too deep because we're in non-spoilers, but there's no new ideas or new stuff to chew on. Everything that's going on in this movie is kind of a reinvention of another thing we've done. Winter Soldier, The Incredible Hulk, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's a little bit tiring at times. You want a new direction, you want a new vision for the MCU, but it feels like a movie that's too scared to kind of go in any new directions, and it doesn't know what it wants to be half the time. And I think that also just comes with the tone shifts from the reshoots and the rewrites. I think the problem with this movie as well is it doesn't know its own strengths. Like, there were parts that it's not a 0 out of 5 movie. I didn't give it a 0 because there is stuff in here that I thought, okay, it's at least salvageable. Like Mackey's humor, his chemistry with Harrison Ford, those are the best parts of the movie. Even like the not funny parts between the two of them, the parts where they are in an argument and they're in like a little, philosophical battle with each other because they have a history. Thunderbolt Ross put Mackie in prison. He put Sam Wilson on the raft. And also, Harrison Ford does deserve some credit for just seamlessly stepping into this role. And I think that's one thing that Marvel has done pretty well consistently, is putting people that are recasts into new roles, other than maybe Cassie Lang. That's the only one I can think of that I was like, that actually didn't really work. But when you're watching a movie, you can feel when it's getting interesting and when everyone in the theater is kind of paying attention a little bit more. Those were all of the parts with Harrison Ford and Anthony Mackie. There was a guy sitting beside me that checked his phone 100 times during the movie. I'm not even kidding. Probably every second scene, he took his phone out. I eventually said, "Hey man, can you put your phone away? Like, it's super distracting," because he had it on full brightness. He just turned the brightness down and kept going on it. I was like, all right, well, I do think another 10 to 15 minutes of character development for, some meaningful emotional stuff would have maybe worked. It's an hour and 58 minutes, and honestly, it's very strange how simultaneously this movie is very boring in parts and it feels too short. It feels like I didn't get to know anyone. It feels like not very much happened. And of course, we can't watch a Marvel movie without talking about the CGI, because, oh my God, I think this might be the worst CGI of the MCU. I don't know. She-Hulk had a couple of moments that didn't look great, but this was really bad, guys. I don't like to pick on the CGI of Marvel movies, but in this one particularly, some clear green screen going on, some very bad texturing in moments. I hate how much nanotech is involved with Sam Wilson's helmet and things just popping up and appearing and stuff like that. It just feels like it's so annoying with the CGI plot armor, and it feels like everyone is protected by CGI in this movie. No one can actually get hurt in these films because it's all just plastic wax everywhere, and it just feels so pointless and heartless. There's nothing real in front of you that you can connect to. Like, I'm almost at the point where I'm finding these movies kind of overstimulating for the MCU, because it's just like nothing is real in front of me. It's all just so plasticky. It does just feel like, and it's very sad for me to say, I feel like the MCU is kind of past its expiration point. We've been saying for how many years now, oh, well, they just need to find their way after Endgame and eventually we'll hit a story. Guys, it's been like how many movies now? 13? Something like that? 13, 14? They have not found their way. There seems to be no direction, and this movie just felt like such a perfect representation of the state of the MCU. Like, there's needle drops in here. It's so strange. It doesn't feel like every scene needs a needle drop. There were probably 4 or 5 needle drops that were very noticeable. It feels weird to say a needle drop is noticeable. It's like, yeah, obviously it's noticeable when a song is playing in the movie, but it felt like, do MCU movies usually have this many needle drops outside of Guardians? I don't think so. And it's a shame because the music by Laura Cartman I actually really liked, and it was one of the contributing factors that actually felt like, oh, we're actually in a spy movie. And I thought her score was really good but underutilized. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but just kind of getting back to the Marvel losing its specialness. Cameos mean nothing to me anymore. There's no cameo you could put in that I would care about now. After Deadpool and Wolverine, just including someone from another movie, please stop hyping it up and not showing them at first and teasing it and then having them pop up on screen and expecting audience clapping and leaving audio room for the clapping from an audience. It's so frustrating to watch, and they do that in this movie again, and it's not even a big cameo. It's the most expected one. I don't know. I'm kind of sick of all these post-credit scenes and the cameos. They don't mean anything anymore. The first 30 minutes of this movie in particular, it's a lot of referencing old MCU movies and just basically telling you what's happened in the previous movies in the most heavy-handed way. There's over-explaining MCU lore, a really lackluster action sequence, and it has a really random opening. It's not spoiling anything because this is all in the trailer and it's super obvious, but it opens with Thaddeus Ross winning the election, and he gives his acceptance speech or whatever, where he's like, oh, we need to unite as a country after we almost lost half the world, or we did lose half the world. And it's like, why are we starting with this? Why not just start with Sam Wilson on his mission and it's established that Thaddeus Ross is president, or we just cut to it after? It doesn't feel necessary to start the movie with him, and I think that just shows how much more of a priority he was in this film over Sam Wilson, and that he really overshadows it. Look, as much as I love Harrison Ford, he overshadows Sam Wilson in a lot of this film as Thaddeus Ross. It feels much more like an Incredible Hulk sequel rather than Captain America Brave New World. They should have called it Red Hulk Brave New World or whatever, or Red Hulk and Captain America, because it is just as much a Red Hulk movie as it is a Captain America movie. And for the first time in a long time, I went pee during this movie. It's 30 minutes in, and it's at a part where after Isaiah Bradley has tried to kill the president at the benefit or whatever that's in the trailer, and it's the you're not Steve Rogers moment. It was just before that. I went pee when they were all in the bunker hiding after. So I went pee because I was bored 30 minutes in and I was gone for a second. I was like, realistically, if I go pee, I'm gone 30 seconds. What am I going to miss? And I didn't want to have anxiety the rest of the film. Where does this sit in the MCU rankings for me? Honestly, pretty low. I don't think it's Ant-Man Quantumania low and that bad, but I think it's hovering just above that, like Thor Love and Thunder or Thor the Dark World. Like it's pretty bad, guys. It's a pretty bad movie. Early prediction for me though, having seen this and how much Disney and Marvel Studios handling of this film has screwed it over, I'm going to make an early prediction that I also said to my friend today. Both Avengers movies, Secret Wars and Doomsday, are going to stink. They are both going to be terrible movies. Just bear with me here, okay? I don't want to be a negative Nelly. I love the MCU. They have 2.5 years to write, prepare, film, edit, and release everything between the two Avengers movies. And they're literally shooting next month, and it was announced fully, the project, at Comic-Con last summer. That is not a good timeline. They are going to cram. The CGI is going to be awful in those movies. It's going to be cameo galore with zero good story, and I'm frankly really worried for how bad those two Avengers movies are going to be, and I think they're going to be the nails in the coffin for the MCU. Look, overall, I think there's very little good to take from this outside of Anthony Mackie and Harrison Ford. Everyone else has zero development. The villains don't really matter to the story, and it doesn't get you excited for a lot. You know, like the old MCU movies would get you excited for a big team up, but now it's just like feels like product placement for another Disney product, and it's really tiring. The CGI is awful. The dialogue is terrible in parts, and it's so awfully put together, this movie. We need Anthony Mackie back in a good one of these ASAP because the MCU is wasting him as Captain America. I think the Endgame Shield handoff was brilliant as an idea, but the execution has been mixed so far. Would I recommend Captain America Brave New World? Probably not. I think this is one you can wait for streaming. It wasn't really a fun time at the movies. I didn't really have that much fun. I don't know. I was kind of bored for a lot of it, and there are other really good movies that are going to be coming to theaters that I think are worth your money over this. So Captain America Brave New World is a 2 out of 5 stars for me. It is really, really not good, guys, but let's get into spoilers. Okay, spoilers for Captain America Brave New World. I've had a sip of my Diet Coke. I'm ready. Red Hulk has been keeping the leader, Tim Blake Nelson, what's his name, Dr. Stearns, alive for the last few years because he had a heart attack and Dr. Stearns kept him alive, saved his life. But he's actually been poisoning President Ross or Thaddeus Ross over the years, exposing him to gamma so he'll turn into the Red Hulk. So I guess he hasn't turned into Red Hulk before, and this movie was his first time turning into Red Hulk. I don't know, they weren't super clear about that, but I will say, I know I was quite negative in my non-spoiler section. I will say that stuff actually sort of works as an explanation, as an idea. You know, he arrested him in the first Incredible Hulk movie, so what does he do? He keeps him alive, and in a moment of desperation, he has to rely on him to save his life. But it just feels like it's not executed in the best way, I guess is what I can say. The Red Hulk transformation wasn't terrible in this, though. I actually think they did a good model, and most of the money for this movie, I would guess, went into Red Hulk because he is the most well-done CGI aspect of the film. All of the helmets look really bad. But anyways, more stuff. Apparently Kendrick Lamar did a song for this movie, Brave New World. Did not notice it. I think it was one of the needle drops at the start of the movie, but they ended on another Kendrick song as well. Eyes or something like that. Eyes. I think that's what it's titled, right? That's a good song though. That song's a banger, but I know he has done an MCU song before. He did Stars. No, what's it called? The Black Panther song. I really liked that song with SZA. That was good, but it didn't feel very unique, his song for this one, or it just wasn't noticeable. But this movie, they literally locked away Isaiah Bradley for the entire film, and he's one of the most interesting parts of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Once again, they lock him into the box and they throw him away in this film, and I was so disappointed. I wish he was more involved in the story. Instead, he tries to kill the president in the first half hour. They put him in solitary confinement, and we literally don't see him until the final scene of the movie where he's smiling and dancing and he's going to take Ruth to a basketball game or whatever. All right, I guess. And again, feels like a waste of a character. Now let's talk about Danny Ramirez again. I don't think he works as the Falcon, and I don't think the Falcon really works as our new Captain America's sidekick anymore. I don't feel any chemistry with them, and I think his, magic or how great he is, honestly, I think it just proves my point. The fact that he's not in the third act of the film. He gets shot down in their battle on Celestial Island, and he's not in like the last third of the film until the final scene. I think the fact that the writers didn't put him at the end of the film fighting with Sam against Red Hulk, I don't know, maybe they just wanted Captain America versus Red Hulk. I get that. I could just be talking garbage, but it felt weird that he got shot down, and that's when we get Bucky coming in, but it's all very strange and didn't really feel earned either. And he's already the Falcon, but then he has to ask Sam again at the end of the film, can I be Falcon? That didn't really make sense to me, because wait, he's wearing the suit and going on every mission with Sam. What do you mean he's not the Falcon? I think he only had to be shot down so they could do a Bucky cameo in this, which I was going to save it, but let's talk about cameos now instead of at the end of the spoiler section. Bucky shows up in this as well. I think that scene, again, works really well, and that comes down to Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan being definitely two of the best MCU actors, for sure. They have the best chemistry of maybe two actors in the MCU actively, other than like Zendaya and Tom Holland, but I guess Bucky is running for senator now, which is sort of hinted at in the Thunderbolts trailer. As some people pointed out, he's wearing a pin that only senators or congressmen or congress members get to wear, so I guess he wins that election. That's a weird step for me, the fact that they're going to put him in government. I'm guessing that's something in the comics. Put in the comments if you know that, but I think his cameo worked. The cameo that didn't work for me, Liv Tyler comes back as Betty Ross when, in the end, Thunderbolt Ross has been sent to the raft. He stepped down as president because he acknowledges, I'm a criminal and the country needs to move on to me. Wink, wink. Real life presidents that are criminals, let the country move on to you. And the fact that Harrison Ford probably signed on for one movie and they were like, yeah, we're just going to put you in jail at the end so you don't have to worry about coming back. That works for me, but what didn't work is Liv Tyler coming back. It's like, wow, all three Hulk fans are going to be really happy that Betty Ross has come back for this. Bruce Banner's not even in this. If you want to please the Hulk fans, at least put the Hulk in the movie, not just Red Hulk. Cameos and these post-credit scenes just don't work at all in the MCU to me. They haven't done anything in years that I've been like, oh oh, interesting, he showed up. Like Deadpool and Wolverine, yes, the cameos were good, but the whole movie was advertised as Cameo Fest, and the fact that this is all one big cameo from Wolverine and Deadpool being in the MCU now, so that doesn't really count. That's more of a one-off to me. And then same with Spider-Man No Way Home. It was so obvious going into the movie, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are going to be in this. Everyone knew it, let's be real. So I don't know, just all these smaller cameos that they try to include now, it's like, guys, why even bother? And stop hyping it up of having them hide off screen. Like, and I'll talk about the post-credit scene now before I get into some other stuff for spoilers, but post-credit scene, it's basically Sam Wilson. He's still on the raft. He goes up to the leader, and it's just this vague threat from him saying, oh, you and the Avengers, you guys may not fear me, but you better fear them. And it's just this vague threat talking about like these other worlds that are gonna come attack, and I think it just shows how much the MCU doesn't have a plan or a particular baddie that they're leading towards. Like, they don't have a specific villain in mind. He could have said Doom or something like that, or Galactus or whoever. That's way more interesting, but just saying like, oh, you're gonna fear them and the others, just give us something. These post-credit scenes used to mean something. They used to tease someone or some big thing, like the Thanos post-credit scenes in like Guardians and the Avengers. Crazy. I remember going crazy for those, but this is just, it's tired, guys. Like a lot of MCU stuff, we are struggling. I need Daredevil Born Again to be good, because I love Daredevil. I will say they played Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, both trailers in IMAX before the movie, and they looked great. Both those trailers look fantastic. No pun intended, Jesus Christ. I'm very hopeful for Thunderbolts, which brings me to another little spoiler I have for why they're called the Thunderbolts. I think in universe, isn't it, they call him Thunderbolt Ross, like Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. I think in the MCU, they've established they call him Thunderbolt, right? So my theory of why they are Thunderbolts asterisks is they can't legally be called the Avengers because like Tony Stark bought them or something like that, or they're a government agency. I don't know. But they can't be called the Thunderbolts because Thaddeus Ross is now in jail and they don't want to be associated with a disgraced president. So that's why they're like, we can't call ourselves the Thunderbolts, guys. I don't know. Just guessing. I'd love to hear what your theories are. Maybe they're going to be called Dark Avengers or something like that. I'm actually really excited for Thunderbolts. I've watched that trailer a few times because I think it actually just looks really fun. And that's what I want. New ideas, fun stuff. Give us new characters. Don't just give us reinventions of old MCU movies. That's boring to me. And same with Fantastic Four. And actually, it was cool. I don't know how it is across the world in like the US or Australia or Europe or anywhere else. Before in Canada, before an IMAX movie, they do like the IMAX countdown and 10-1 and like watch a movie and all the special features that are coming with your IMAX screening. And it was actually Fantastic Four themed, the IMAX countdown. Looked really cool, a lot of fun, and it's like a small advert for Fantastic Four that's coming July 25th. That was really cool. I like that a lot, and it just gets me even more excited for, you know, the future of 2 MCU projects, but everything else I'm just not optimistic for. Maybe Daredevil Born Again, but I don't know. The showrunners are just saying the weirdest stuff. Like, we didn't want to do more 2 people talking about things. It's like, that's some of the best stuff in the Daredevil show is just 2 characters talking. But okay, a couple more things. You can definitely tell Shira Haas as Ruth Bat-Sarap was rewritten in this film a lot. I've read in a few online sources that her character was cut out of the movie a lot more. She's already in the movie a lot. She even has her special suit, right? Like that blue and black leather jacket that kind of looks like some armor plating underneath. I don't know what's up with that, but definitely she was, I think, a much bigger role, and they probably used the name Sabra, but I don't even know if they referenced the name Sabra in the final cut of the film, but you can really tell where the reshoots were with her specifically. And as for the ending, which I believe was completely reshot multiple times, Sam just talks down the Red Hulk by being like, oh, remember coming here and seeing the cherry blossoms with Betty? Why didn't he do that before the fight? It makes no sense that he was like, yeah, let's fight first and then I'll try that. He didn't think of that earlier. And how would he know that he came with Betty? Did he say that before? I don't even remember that either. It just feels like a very anticlimactic fight to the end, and it feels like the, hey, big guy, sun's getting real low with the Hulk. There's just a lot of tired stuff that doesn't really make sense in this movie, and it's kind of like, what the hell, sure. But in that scene in particular, Sam's speech in it when he's telling Red Hulk to calm down, remember you used to come here with Betty? Oh my god, when it cuts back to him, you can tell the green screen, the reshoots, the inserts, they're really bad. That was the worst part of the movie, easily reshoot wise, but there was a lot of that going around. I don't know what else to talk about in spoilers. Like, the trailer really did give a lot away. The fact that Serpent Society is involved, the leader is still alive. I think he's in one of the trailers, and they kind of show him a little bit. Overall, Captain America Brave New World, pretty bad, guys. Definitely a movie that was killed by the studio that though. I don't think any of the cast members are at fault. None of this is their performance's fault. I think they are all underdeveloped and not really let to shine to their full potential. Anthony Mackie and Harrison Ford, still really great in this. Even Bucky Barnes, Sebastian Stan, when he shows up for 2 minutes, he's really good in this. But let's move into what else I watched. All right, what else I watched? Well, I have been catching up majorly for the Oscars, so I have watched 10 movies/documentaries, 2 TV shows, I bought a new video game, and I read a pretty good comic book. So let's start with the video game, Baldur's Gate 3. I'm trying to get into Dungeons and Dragons and like that kind of world, so my friend last year recommended Baldur's Gate 3. I said, okay, I'll put it on the list, and I got it. It's insanely frustrating, but it is so much fun. I'm stuck right now fighting the Paladin with this big devil lady, and I just can't seem to beat them, so I'm maybe gonna have to watch some YouTube tutorial. My guy is like I can't remember what he's called, but he's like sort of a magician, deceitful type guy. I didn't want to go big physical attacker dude, so I went more intelligent, deceitful dude. But more Baldur's Gate 3 reviews maybe coming when I get further into the story. It's a lot of fun. Then comic books, I read Superman, Batman, Big Noise. Right now you can go on my social media, listen to my review. Long story short, I liked it a lot. It's really fun. There's a cool rival alien that comes to Earth looking for the Superman. It's just a really fun story where this like rival alien comes, he hires a hitman called Energy X, and Batman and Superman team up to take him down. It's a really well written story. It's actually pretty short as well. I think it's 5 issues, and it's just super concise. There isn't a billion characters like most of these Superman Batman stories that we've been reading. Look, we have one more Superman Batman story to read, and then we are moving on. I think I might jump to a Marvel story after, because I was thinking about it the other day. I've only done DC comic books, but having said that, I only have a couple of more DC franchises to get through. I think we have a Teen Titans story, and that might actually be it. And then I think I'm going to jump into Captain America Winter Soldier, but I'll keep you in the loop. All right, let's move into TV shows quickly. Severance, Season 2, Episode 4, Woe's Hollow, and Episode 5, Trojan's Horse. Severance is the best TV show, one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and it's the best thing on TV right now. Let's start with Woe's Hollow. They go on this Ortbo, which anyways, it's revealed that Helena has actually been in control the whole time. Irving B gets fired, and it's just insane. One of the most chaotic and well-written episodes of TV. God, I've been missing Succession and Barry recently, but Severance has totally filled the void. Then last night's episode, technically, Trojan's Horse, Mr. Milchek asked Natalie, what did you think of the paintings we got that had the race-swapped Kier story or whatever? So I really like what they're doing with Milchek, kind of showing him as a human, but also he's kind of beefing with Mark and Miss Huang Miss Huang. I loved that they were beefing, and that was a lot of fun. I love how fast they're moving the show. They're not trying to draw it out for 5 seasons. It's very clear. I think season 3 will probably be the final season, and I think that's fine. Then I watched episodes 4 to 8 of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man while building some Lego, and then not building Lego as well. I have to say it's a really good show. I think they could have made a better choice of someone that's actually younger or closer to being a grade 9, 14-year-old, but what they're doing with Scorpion, what they're doing with Tombstone, what they're doing with the Osborns, it's so good. Oh my god, it is literally comic book come to life. The show is actually also just a really good idea if you were to reboot Spider-Man, what you could do. But at the same time, we've gotten a lot of high school Spider-Man and young Spider-Man in our lives. We haven't seen tons of like older, later year Spider-Man stuff moving into Miles Morales in live action. But anyways, if you haven't watched Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, I would totally recommend it. But here we go. 10 movies to talk about, starting with Hard Eyes. I saw it last week. It's really fun. It's just such a good like satire commentary on horror movies, and it's making fun of all these horror movies. It's almost making fun of Scream, which is another horror movie that's making fun of other horror movies as well. If you're looking for a fun horror movie to watch this Valentine's Day, I would totally recommend Hard Eyes. I actually gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. I think it's pretty dumb. It's hilarious. It's corny. It's really violent, but I sort of loved it. It feels like a really fun satire on top of a satire, and it's just super meta, and like the meta levels are rising. The cast is good with Olivia Holt and Mason Gooding. Then I watched Love Hurts, which was really bad. Ke Huy Quan is really the only shining thing in it, but even he can't save that movie because boy, oh boy, I just put my review on social media yesterday, and it's not a good movie, guys. I gave it 2 stars. It's badly put together. There's so much ADR, tons of narration used to explain what's happening. Didn't like it. It's not ranked ranking very high in my 2025 rankings. Then I watched Saving Private Ryan because my girlfriend had never seen it. She thought it was okay. She thinks it's a little bit corny, and I would agree. There are some moments that I feel like, okay, Steven, you're really reaching for it there. But having said that, it's just crazy violent and crazy war action that, is kind of entertaining. So I gave it 4 stars. It's a classic. It's Saving Private Ryan. Those first 20 minutes are insane when they're going on the beach at Normandy. Then, speaking of military movies, I watched Captain America, The Winter Soldier. God damn, that movie still holds up. I think it is some of the best MCU stuff ever. Probably top 5 MCU movies for me. Oh, also, I gave Saving Private Ryan 4 stars. If I haven't said it yet, I gave Hard Eyes 3.5, Love Hurts 2, Saving Private Ryan 4. But Captain America, Winter Soldier, Sebastian Stan, so good in that. I think it's the best Chris Evans ever was as Captain America. He's given so much fun stuff to do in Winter Soldier. Him and Natasha have such a good friendship. I think Scarlett Johansson is amazing in Winter Soldier as well. The action is amazing. I can't believe it was the Russo brothers' first MCU movie. It's a 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. It was so much fun. Then I, of course, had to watch Captain America Civil War after. I think every time I watch it, I kind of like it a little bit less, or I don't like it less. I notice more flaws in it. This time I really noticed how bad the CGI was, and I don't know, there's some moments that really don't work. I posted about the Sharon Carter kiss on my Instagram this week, and it's my most liked video ever on Instagram. Anyways, it's dumb, and it's just the amount of people defending the kiss is worrying. Like, that's technically, that's his former girlfriend's great niece, and it's such an odd moment in the movie. But one of the funniest moments of the MCU is when they cut to Sam Wilson and Bucky sitting in the Volkswagen after, and they're both just like nodding their heads like, hell yeah, Steve. That's a really funny moment. But I gave it 4 stars. I still think there's a lot of really great stuff in it. Watching Tom Holland show up is so weird for the first time. Oh my God. After years of him being in the spotlight and being, the guy, he is Spider-Man. It's so fun to watch his first appearance because he's so good. 4 stars. Then I saw I'm Still Here / Ainda Estou Aqui, which is one of the Best Picture nominees. It's the last Best Picture nominee I needed to watch, and I freaking loved it. It was insane. If you haven't seen it, totally recommend it. It's actually the first movie I ever saw in theaters that wasn't in English. It's brilliant. Fernanda Torres is astonishing in it. It's a really heartbreaking story. If she won, I wouldn't be shocked because she is just really great. Then I watched Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie, going from an amazing Oscar movie that I gave 4.5 stars to one of the dumbest and funniest, goofy, over-the-top comedy movies ever made. Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie was just so funny. I watched it on YouTube with their watch-along that they did a few years ago in 2020, I think, and it's so dumb. I gave it 3.5 stars. I had never seen it before, but it's so over-the-top and just needlessly goofy. Now, just briefly, because I want to wrap things up, I will quickly say the stuff I was watching in my Oscar catch-up. The Girl with the Needle on Mubi. It was one of the most disturbing films I have ever seen, and the title itself, The Girl with the Needle, is not what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be because she works in a sewing factory. That was not the case. Having said that, it was disturbing. I didn't sleep well after I watched it, and I needed to watch puppy videos after I saw it, actually. I gave it 3.5 stars because it was well acted. Then I watched Memoir of a Snail, the final animated film that I needed to see, and I loved it. I laughed. I cried a few times. It was brilliant. 4.5 stars. And finally, I watched 2 documentaries. They're the only 2 documentaries I could watch in that category. I watched Black Box Diaries, which is the true story of this Japanese journalist who was sexually assaulted by a fellow journalist that was friends with the prime minister. And it's her documenting her experience of going through the legal troubles and the case and the very outdated rape laws that are in Japan and society's kind of treatment of women that are victims of sexual assault in Japan. Really personal story from Shiori Ito, I think I'm saying that right, that I would totally recommend. I rented it on Apple TV and it was totally worth the $4 or whatever renting it. Then I watched a Canadian documentary called Sugarcane, which was about Kamloops, how they discovered the residential school mass graves a few years ago. I'll read a bit of my Letterboxd review here for you. I think it's an important experience as a Canadian to watch documentaries like this and learn from these important people. I will never forget the day they found mass graves. It made me feel distant from my identity as a Canadian, but then I thought of the identities, culture, and communities that were torn away from our Indigenous communities in the residential school system, and it woke me up. Now is not the time to be offended, defensive, or ignorant about the past. We must be better, and as the next generation, we have to break away from the ignorant habits. The documentary itself may not be perfect and focuses on too many threads, but it's such an important piece to help us understand the culture shift we must go through as Canadians living on stolen land. I gave it 3.5 3.5 stars. I thought it was very informative and heartbreaking, but it was just kind of biting off a little bit more than it could chew. And then I gave Black Box Diaries 4 stars. I thought it was really great and just a very personal story. So Hard Eyes, 3.5 stars. Love Hurts, 2 stars. Saving Private Ryan, 4 stars. Captain America, The Winter Soldier, 4.5 stars. Captain America Civil War, 4 stars. I'm Still Here, 4.5 stars. Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie, 3.5 stars. We're almost there. Bear with me. The Girl with the Needle, 3.5 stars. Memoir of a Snail, 4.5 stars. Black Box Diaries, 4 stars. Sugarcane, 3.5 stars. Lots of stuff I've talked about, but I think that's going to do it for what else I watched. And in fact, I think that's going to do it for another disappointing MCU episode. Still fun to talk about and kind of, I don't know, as a diehard MCU fan, I'm really trying to come to terms with, man, this MCU kind of collapsing and it's unrecognizable anymore. And now it's really just a slot machine. Disappointing, but I would love to hear what you thought of Captain America, Brave New World. As always, please rate and review the show 5 stars on all of our streaming platforms, wherever you get your great podcasts like Watch of all things, whether that be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Acast. We are, of course, an Acast produced show. Give us 5 stars. You can actually comment right underneath on Spotify as well. If you are on the YouTube channel, where we have just hit 170 subscribers, very exciting. Also look forward to my Oscar hopes and predictions video coming out February 28th. Please like, subscribe, comment down below what you thought of Brave New World. What have you been watching in the lead up to the Oscars, and hit the notification bell so you know when new videos and new podcasts drop. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can email us, watcherofallthings@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you, or get in touch with us on the social media pages. Instagram and Threads are at watcherofallthings, and the TikTok account is at watcher.of.all.things. And you can follow my personal Letterboxd account, KikiJ70. That's KIKIJ70, where I have my 2025 ranked list going on. I think today was my 11th film of 2025. So follow my Letterboxd, KikiJ70. Drop a comment that you found me through the podcast, and I will follow you back. Let's build a little community. Next week, I think it's The Monkey, the new Oz Perkins film that I've seen pretty mostly positive reviews for. A lot of people saying it's not as good as Longlegs, but I'm excited to see it. But as for now, that's going to do it. Happy Family Day, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day, I guess. Thank you all so much for listening. Stay warm, stay safe, and I will see you in the next one.